daughter and son-in-law survived on their boat, but the storm still seemed far away. Hugo next struck Puerto Rico. Early estimates put the property damage at more than $40 million. "6 a.m., Folly Beach, South Carolina. Hurricane Hugo leaves a calling card. This time just a short downpour, but he'll be back. And James Island is already flooding. Police officer Tom Marshall gets a call for help. It's simple, just putting a hardtop on a Jeep. He worries about the calls police will get if residents don't leave soon.
Heading out. You can't see nothing.
We'll be out here within the hour, and I appreciate your help.
At first light, it's easy to see the problem. There's just one way off of James Island, this bridge. The situation's the same on other barrier islands. Phil McClellan saw what Hurricane David did in '79 and fears Hugo will be much worse.
Whole top floor blew off.
As the waves offshore get bigger, the surfers can't resist.
We're evacuating as quickly as we can.
Just a few last-minute details to attend to.
Yeah, we have to clean up the beach first, and then we'll leave.
Folly is known as a family beach, and that means that no family member gets excluded, even if it can be tricky to pack the pet cat. And while almost everyone has left Folly Beach by afternoon, there are a few people who plan to tough it out. Bob Sturtz wants to stay. His wife wants to go.
I'm hoping before it's over with, we'll say sayonara out of here, but I'll stand by him.
You know, they call this place Folly Beach.
Yeah, folly, because of folly meaning foolishness.
Does that apply to you?
Oh, of course.
When the rain stops briefly, it's hard to believe there will be a hurricane. But locals say they know this calm and the fury that comes next.
As the winds began to pick up, businessmen worked hard to protect their shops, boarding up the windows, putting sandbags at the front door, trying to be optimistic.
We overdue for one. Maybe it won't be that bad.
But most businessmen are resigned to the fact that there will be damage in this area, especially to the street-level shops. They are not built up as many homes are in this area. If there is flooding, the street-level shops will feel the brunt of it. Everyone was urged by emergency officials to head for higher ground. Students at the College of Charleston were loaded on buses on their way to Columbia to get out of Hugo's path.
These are the last students left in our dormitories. The rest went home by their own means.
Those not able to head out of town went to a nearby evacuation center. That's where Margaret Green's family plans to ride out the storm.
We're making the best of it. Right now, it's almost like home.
But others, like John Hassel, aren't going anywhere. He's determined to stay home and protect his property from the storm, and is packing a pistol in case of trouble afterwards.
If anyone comes to my house or one of my neighbors' homes trying to get anything, we won't let it happen.
But no problems have been reported so far, and by mid-afternoon, the streets were empty as the city braced for Hugo.
It's dead down here. I've never seen anything like this. Very spooky.
For coastal Carolina residents, this is the first day to begin coping. Flashlights, batteries, kerosene, and all of life's necessities now seem to be luxury devices. Last-minute preparations brought on a spending spree, with people in search of survival items.
Cigarettes, sodas. You got soup, bread, crackers, stuff like that. Yes, I think so.
Kmart will be closing at 12 o'clock.
At high noon, most stores in nearby coastal communities closed, and it isn't known when they'll reopen. A shortage of ice has existed since yesterday. Clean water is available, but going quickly. This trailer load arrived from Midas Springs near Charlotte earlier in the day.
It's been wild. It's been busy here. We sold more water yesterday probably than we would normally sell in an entire week.
A computerized tracking chart of Hurricane Hugo as it makes its way toward the South Carolina coast. Jerry Wilson from Mecklenburg County's Emergency Management has been posting daily maps of its progress and its possible effects here.
We're expecting possible flooding in low-lying areas that would normally flood. And if we get the type of rain they're calling for, it could be, more flooding than anticipated.
Yeah, that's
Across town, these engineers were rolling out the floodway maps to look for potential trouble spots. They highlighted locations that will likely flood if there's torrential rain. Spots like this daycare center on Eastway Drive.
Well, generally, 5 inches of rain would create pretty substantial localized flooding, backyard flooding, etc. When it starts getting up towards 10-inch range, we're talking about widespread flooding throughout Charlotte.
We have to still take some precautions because we could still easily see winds anywhere from, say, 50 to 80 miles per hour. Now, if that was to happen, some serious damage could be happening to trees. We could have some power outages.
In Cabarrus County, the Red Cross has already designated the Cannon YMCA as a shelter for 200 residents in Kannapolis.
From the reports that we've heard, we do feel that we need to be ready in the event. I would much rather be prepared and never have to use it than to have it arise and us not be ready.
I say 50-50 chance it's going to get some damage. No matter what I do here, it's going to tear something up.
But no matter what we could have done, we wouldn't have been prepared for what actually happened. Weather forecasters gave us plenty of warning. Charlotte-Mecklenburg had just put a new disaster plan into effect. But plans and warnings won't keep a tree off your house or power lines out of the road. Nobody was prepared for Hugo to still be a hurricane 200 miles inland. When we come back, we'll take a look at that night of terror.
We sure enjoy our home.
That's why we've invested in the Omni window system, America's preferred window.
The installers were fast, efficient, very neat, and right on time.
Real professionals.
Omni windows are the only windows endorsed by the American Window Institute.
Why are more and more American homes replacing their old drafty windows with Omni? Well, just look at the variety of shapes and styles. All feature Omni's XPE triple insulated glass or extra performance with energy efficiency. Now, this means more savings day after day. Plus, Omni windows carry a lifetime limited warranty. The strongest, most energy-efficient, maintenance-free window system available today with the all-new exclusive energy-efficient XPE triple insulated glass. For information and a chance to win a house full of Omni windows, call anytime.
You'll be glad you did.
We sure are. Call Capital Improvements of the Carolinas at this number.
My crew and I sure know how to make this baby go fast, but your Carolina Ford dealers sure know how to make these #1 selling trucks go even faster, especially now during the Ford Truck Month clearance. First, you add a factory option package that'll save you over $2,200 on this Bronco too. Then you slap on either special financing or $1,250 cash back from Ford. Finally, you top it all off with a Super Ford Truck Month clearance discount from your Carolina Ford dealer. Hey, with those kind of savings, they gotta go fast.
Single? Call the all-new dating hotline at 1-900-820-USA1, the area's finest telephone introduction service. If you're looking for fun, a night out, a talk on the phone, or even a lasting relationship, then call 1-900-820-USA1. Our exclusive service allows you to choose from hundreds of men and women from the area code you select. Call from anywhere for only $1.50 the first minute and 75 cents each additional minute. Call now, 1-900-820-USA1.
It's time to tee off to help the American Lung Association. 57 golf courses in the Piedmont and Western North Carolina areas offer a way to improve your game and help save lives. For $30, you will receive a golf privilege card, a card that enables you to play a free round of golf at each participating golf course. Call your local American Lung Association for more information and make your next swing a lifesaver. That's not too bad.
Even before the full force of Hugo hit, the beach areas were taking a beating. Signs were flattened, banners shredded. Sandstorm-like conditions prevailed as the tide and surf moved ever closer to Ocean Drive. Hurricane-force winds arrived just before midnight, popping transformers, downing trees, and covering roads with debris. This awning-style roof on one business fought the storm for several hours. In the end, the storm won. High winds lasted several hours here. Damage is heavy, say officials, who believe it may take weeks or months to clean everything up.
The alarms are ringing all over town, but there's no one to answer them. In the center of Hurricane Hugo, there are just too many emergencies. This is the worst hurricane to hit Charleston in at least 30 years. We found ourselves caught in the fury of the storm. Winds so strong they bent trees and snapped them. Others pulled out by the roots. This Winnebago was flipped over twice. We found the safest spot available, a strip shopping center. It's 10 minutes until midnight, and Hurricane Hugo is lashing Charleston with the full force of its mighty winds. The eye of the hurricane is expected to pass nearby sometime within the next hour. But this shopping center was no match for Hugo, and as we watched, it began to break apart. But in the middle of these furious winds, suddenly they disappeared. It is now 9 minutes after 12, and this is the eye of a hurricane. Just a few minutes ago, it wasn't possible to stand in this parking lot. Now, there's an eerie calm. 40 minutes later, the winds are back with a vengeance. We take refuge from flying debris behind these pieces of plywood that flew in through the air.
Families and just piles of kids riding in cars, and they're just causing more and more problems for everybody. We can't even get crews out to work on this stuff.
All night, Carolinians huddled together in terror as Hugo howled outside in the darkness. Then at dawn, we staggered out to find that here in Charlotte, our city of trees had turned into a city of stumps and twisted limbs. We were stunned by what we saw, and it was clear that this entire area was just crippled. In just a moment, we'll show you how we began to cope with it.
We're about to. We're just heading around the block. Okay.
My crew and I sure know how to make this baby go fast, but your Carolina Ford dealers sure know how to make these #1 selling trucks go even faster, especially now during the Ford Truck Month clearance. First, you add a factory option package that'll save you over $1,300 on this Ford Ranger. Then you slap on either special financing or up to $1,000 cash back from Ford. Finally, you top it all off with a super Ford Truck Month clearance discount from your Carolina Ford dealer. Hey, with those kind of savings, they gotta go fast.
WBTV and Southeast Productions team up to bring you the exciting Carolina Sport Fishing Boat Show, October 26th through 29th at the Charlotte Convention Center. Whether you're into saltwater or freshwater fishing, the Carolina Sport Fishing Boat Show is for you. Meet 4 of the biggest names in the bass fishing business. Catch the casting demonstration in the giant bass tub, and check out the latest in boats, electronics, tackle, and supplies. All at the Carolina Sport Fishing Boat Show, October 26th through 29th, Charlotte Convention Center, Uptown Charlotte.
Hey kids, get ready to break out the crayons and markers and try your hand at Color the Weather. Just pick up an entry blank at your local McDonald's. Each night at 6, a winning picture will be displayed during the weather on WBTV News. Nightly winners will receive a $10 gift certificate from McDonald's. Each monthly winner can choose 2 of these prizes, and the grand prize at the end of the school year will be a Nintendo Power Play system and a family vacation for 4 at Disney World. So get ready to color the weather with WBTV.
Americans waste 137 million tons of food each year, enough to feed 49 million people. The Metrolina Food Bank has an answer. The food industry and group donations provide resources to the Metrolina Food Bank. The food bank then distributes the food to nonprofit agencies serving the needy in 19 counties. Last year, they collected 4.5 million pounds of food, enough to feed 4 million people a hearty meal. Support the Metrolina Food Bank.
When the black of hurricane night gave way to the gray morning after, Charlotteans were astonished at the damage. Giant plate glass windows blown out uptown, many of them dozens of stories above street level. Traffic control practically non-existent. So much debris on some streets it looked like a green snow. Trees down everywhere, many on houses in older neighborhoods like Myers Park, Dilworth, Elizabeth. What was it like here in Dilworth early this morning?
Very scary. The wind, the roar of the wind, it's unreal. It was just like a whoo, just all night kind of, you know.
Even before the rain stopped, scores of city crews began hitting the streets to clear the roadways.
I said, we got our work cut out for us now.
City officials say it may take months to clean up hundreds of downed trees, starting with those on the largest thoroughfares. But the city arborist says much of the damage to trees is yet to be apparent.
It's going to shorten the life of a lot of the older trees because of large limbs being broken out and decay and things getting started in the trees. So I'd say it's a devastating impact.
To repair the mangled electric distribution system, Duke Power hopes to field as many as 500 to 600 workers, some on loan from power companies in other states. 200,000 Duke customers lost power.
Terrible. I don't want to see no more hurricanes.
Even as repairs have started, Duke is still assessing the extent of the damage. And it says getting all customers back online could take days.
First thing we have to do is get to lines like this. This is a primary line. This is one that is coming right out of the substation. We have to get these lines back up and working before we can start working on the secondary lines and the service drop right to the customer.
This is what Hugo sounded like last night as it made its way from the coast through Charlotte.
About 20 minutes ago, it was nice and calm, and all of a sudden, it just like everything broke loose.
This is what Hugo looked like this morning after a 5-hour visit. Trees slicing into houses, trees uprooted, and restaurant signs scattered about. Forecasters warned that Hugo was a deadly and powerful storm, but no one, even emergency management officials, thought the hurricane would pack such a punch this far inland.
They warned us it was coming. I tried to take some precautions where I parked my cars and that, but it didn't work. It woke me up about 4:35. It was so severe I couldn't sleep. I don't think anybody else did.
This is the first hurricane I've been in. Or was it a tornado?
Rain and wind and just blowing and just very, very scary. A lot of noise, and we were just all real scared to death.
Hugo left the entire town of Newton without electricity, despite the efforts of city crews who worked to clear the streets once the rain stopped. The outlook for restoring power quickly isn't good.
We were out of power since probably around midnight, maybe a little after. And we probably will be 2 or 3 days without power, I'm guessing.
Hugo's ferocity continued as the winds buffeted Caldwell County, spawning at least 2 reported tornadoes, downing more trees and power lines, but sparing most homes.
First time I had ever seen one, and the trees were just kind of twisting and turning, and they just started falling and laying down, and it was scary.
The damage from the wind turned most of the roads into obstacle courses, making a long day for DOT road crews.
About every road around here has trees on it.
Jim and Jan Hill spent the night not only fearing for their lives, but for 20,000 chickens in 2 coops near their farm. The coops were not heavily damaged and few chickens died, but the feeding system is all electric. Without power, their losses could be great.
It seemed to have weathered it all right, even though it did go through and open the doors and scare them probably pretty much last night.
You got problems feeding them, that kind of thing?
Yes, without any electricity, we can't get any feed to them. They will have water, but no feed.
The winds danced across Union County from Monroe to the northwest. This family was lucky. A mobile home with 3 people inside went untouched, while the adjacent barn was blown down.
Trailer sitting there, not a thing bothered except a couple of pine trees down beside it and an apple tree down behind it.
Charleston, South Carolina is famed for its fine old homes and gracious living. But today, the city showed a different face, one ravaged by Hugo. The worst storm of the century here split off entire stories of houses and peeled the tin roofs off of City Hall and the old market downtown. Boats moored offshore wound up instead in the middle of the road.
Well, it was like an atomic explosion, really. I mean, this tree hit the side of the house, and it shook it entirely.
500,000 residents were left without water or electricity, and one man died when his home collapsed.
He was trapped in a building that was demolished, and we had to dig him out.
Officials say the situation would have been much worse, but most residents left Charleston or went to evacuation centers. The city's business center was devastated, and the mayor announced today that National Guard troops will search for looters.
In terms of public safety, if we're going to err, it's going to be on the side of making sure that every eventuality is considered and that the city is safe.
In the meantime, Charleston began cleaning up and getting ready for the fall tourist season. This unexpected facelift could cost as much as $1 billion.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. A large part of South Carolina was officially declared a major federal disaster area today after a brutal early morning pounding by Hurricane Hugo. Buildings were flattened, streets flooded, homes washed away. South Carolina's governor called it the worst disaster he'd ever seen. The hurricane scored a direct hit on Charleston, doing heavy damage all along the lowland coast. Total death toll in the Carolinas, at least 10, most right in the Charleston area. Hugo then stormed upward, far inland, into Charlotte, North Carolina, still packing hurricane-strength wind. The hurricane's whirlwind trip northward over land sapped most of its strength. Hugo was downgraded this morning to officially a tropical storm, and tonight it's just another weather system, bringing some wind and rain to the north, but nothing like the reign of terror in the south. As predicted, the hurricane made landfall at about midnight Eastern Time last evening. Here's a sample of the sound and the fury. Those 135-mile-an-hour winds and the heavy rain took their heaviest toll right around Charleston. The hurricane blew in at high tide and, as had been feared, sent a wall of water, sometimes 20 foot high, rushing as far as 10 miles inland. CBS News correspondent Richard Schlesinger is on the scene. Richard?
Dan, good evening. The damage here in some parts of this area was appalling. There were some buildings that were not just destroyed, they vanished. This is what 135-mile-per-hour winds and 17 feet of water can do to a place. The barrier islands off Charleston were chewed up and spit out by Hugo on his way to the mainland.
Well, right now it's a mess. They've got power lines down. There's no power, no water, no phones.
President Bush has declared the region a disaster area. The National Guard has been called out to help the overburdened police. The islands off Charleston were cut off when the bridges were mangled. Emergency workers went by boat to see the destruction firsthand. What was here?
This used to be the landscape office. It was a building that was on that structure. And where that went, your guess is as good as mine.
John DeBajian spent the night hunkered down inside his house on Sullivan's Island in the middle of the hurricane.
It was a whooshing sound. That's all you could hear, was whoosh and continuous whoosh.
DeBajian insists he wasn't scared. He risked his life because he couldn't find a hotel that would take his dogs. Hugo's blunt power caused erratic, sometimes peculiar damage.
I prayed and I asked the Lord, if he wanted the furniture, well and good, but please save me without any injuries.
The storm saved Mrs. Robinson's furniture, but took the walls. All over Charleston, Hugo changed the landscape. A restaurant here yesterday is gone today. a tranquil oceanfront neighborhood transformed overnight.
Officials in Charlotte, North Carolina report that the damage from Hugo and its hurricane-force winds there was the worst in at least 30 years, maybe 35 or 40. Most residents had never seen anything like it, and correspondent Bruce Hall tells us many were stunned with surprise. They never expected to see it today. Bruce?
Dan, people here were genuinely surprised. Charlotte is 200 miles inland, and no one here expected the full force of a hurricane to hit this city. Hugo was still packing 90-mile-an-hour winds when it rammed Charlotte shortly before dawn, the first hurricane ever to hit this inland city. Thousands were rousted from homes and hotels, including many who had come from the coastal areas, thinking they would be able to escape the fury of the storm.
Well, it's definitely not what anyone expected up here. We all thought we were too far inland to get this type of weather.
When the wind and rain stopped, residents could not believe the damage. Roofing and glass littered the streets. Windows were blown out of downtown skyscrapers. Streetlights and metal signs spun around and around.
It's terrible. It's a mess. It's like this all over. It's bad.
Century-old oaks were split in half by the storm, their leaves stripped away by the wind. Power transformers and electrical lines were strewn along sidewalks and streets. Homes and cars were crushed by debris.
Things are pretty bad out there. We still don't know the degree of the damages.
Tonight, Charlotte has been declared a disaster area, and the cleanup is underway. Residents are still asking the question, how the storm could still be packing such a punch this far inland.
Oh, I've always heard that Charlotte was just far enough out from the mountains and far away from the coast that we didn't get any really serious storms. But we got fooled, didn't we?
It's going to be another long night in Charlotte. The city is expected to be in darkness. The power company saying it will be several days before they can restore electricity to all of the community. And residents here are now familiar with the full force of a hurricane.
Before you choose a body shop to paint your car, ask a few questions. Do they care about the environment as much as your car?
Hi, Mr. Pressman. The tourist is all set.
Will the work be done at your convenience?
Okay, we'll see you at 1.
Are they preferred by corporations nationwide with dependability and service? And do they back their work in writing?
Great, I will.
If you don't know, you better get Mako.
Good cooks have always depended on Red Band flour, and I'd like you to share your favorite recipes with me in my Carolina's Cooking with Red Band recipe contest. 13 semi-finalists win my new cookbook and a Top of the Day apron, and the grand prize is $250 and the guest appearance on Top of the Day. Entry forms and complete rules are available in this October 1st Sunday newspaper insert. Send your recipe, entry form, and proof of purchase from Red Band flour to Top of the Day. Good luck in my Carolina's Cooking with Red Band recipe contest.
New cars deserve all the protection they can get. So which antifreeze do most major U.S. automakers choose to protect the cooling systems for many of their new cars? Texaco antifreeze coolant. Texaco, original equipment antifreeze. Factory installed for dependable, durable protection against corrosion, rust, and freeze-ups. So when it's time to change your antifreeze, don't change your antifreeze. Stick with Texaco.
He strives for accuracy, committed to a fair presentation of the facts. She goes after the complete story, digging for important details. A seasoned journalist, an experienced field reporter. When the two come together, you get the best team for news that is complete, concise, and easy to understand. Bob Inman and Sarah James, on your side with the information you need to know.
Climb aboard the Wilkinson Uptown Connection and leave the driving to us. Avoid the hassles of parking and traffic congestion. Just park your car and sit back and ride in comfort aboard this convenient shuttle coach. Express service available from Queensgate Shopping Center on Wilkinson Boulevard to Uptown Charlotte, Monday through Friday.
Of
course, all of our Carolina communities are reeling from the effects of this hurricane that we've had to deal with. And WBTV meteorologist Eric Thomas is here with me. And Eric, I know that you're someone who has a bit more experience with storms of this sort than I, because you lived in Louisiana and had to deal with some down there.
For about 4 years, Mike, and it was an interesting experience, too, because we had about 6 hurricanes that came in from the Gulf and up into Louisiana. But every time, we were inland as well, every time the hurricanes, by the time they got to our point, they were weak. You know, it was winds 30, 40 miles per hour, but big rain producers. And, you know, that morning, AccuWeather predicted, or the 24 hours before the fact, predicted that we were still going to have almost hurricane-force winds in Charlotte. And I said, now, wait a minute. I've lived in Louisiana. That's never happened before. And they said, this isn't the Gulf Coast. This is the Atlantic Coast.
You got it, yeah. And this is so much of what we all had such a big problem believing to begin with. I mean, there was no doubt we had faith in what AccuWeather said and what the National Weather Service was saying, but it was so against the odds to have the force of winds we had to deal with here in our city, 200 miles inland. That's what made it obviously so exceptional.
You're right, and I have to give AccuWeather the utmost credit, because I think a lot of meteorologists were lulled into thinking that it would just, you know, pan out and die, and it maintained its strength, which is, as I said, that's what they said. And to have the hurricane-force winds this far inland still, and look at this, Mike, even on this picture. Yeah. This picture here showing where the eye was still just barely defined, but look at this, 180 miles. And it came all the way up into the Piedmont, and to still show any type of eye at all is almost unheard of.
Well, isn't it the last one of this ferocity with this much force intact this far inland was the great hurricane of 1893, as I recall, right, in terms of Charlotte being hit?
I believe so. Now, AccuWeather told me that they were looking at a hurricane back in 1916, which, although might not have been as big as the one in 93, but still was similar to this, and that is what they were basing one of their forecasts on. So they did their homework.
They surely did, and it paid off. The good news, obviously, for all of us who live here, and those of us who are in broadcasting are particularly encouraged to see that you paid attention to the warnings, because the number of deaths wrought by this hurricane was amazingly low across the Carolinas, and that's good news. That means at least some of the effect of what radio and television stations want to do in times of weather stress was effective this time.
You're not kidding, and I'll tell you, when I looked out the window that morning when the lights came up, the sun came up, to see all those trees just split like toothpicks was incredible.
I've never seen anything like it either. Hopefully we will never see it again. The odds are maybe another century before another storm like this. We hope it doesn't even come that soon. Well, stay with us. We'll take a look at how the Carolinas coped with Hurricane Hugo after we pause for this.
Years ago, car and truck financing in Charlotte was mostly a buyer's responsibility.
But today all that has changed. Dick Kepper has established a new standard for easy, flexible financing.
The Kepper standard? Well, it simply means car and truck buyers have a choice of financing plans.
Kepper's standard of easy financing is just one of the reasons that has helped us expand from 1 dealership to 3 in just a few short years.
The Kepper standard. It's a sign you're getting easy financing.
I'm Don Lyles, owner of College Building Supplies. For over 5 years, our prices have remained the same. So come on down to College Building Supplies for the best prices in North Carolina.
Roofing material includes fiberglass shingles, $16.95 per square or $5.65 per bundle. Roll roofing, $9.95 per roll. Exterior siding, 8-inch by 16 foot, $239. 12-inch by 16 foot, $4.95.
So come on down to College Building Supply before you spend too much somewhere else. Highway 321 across from Gaston College.
WBTV and Southeast Productions team up to bring you the exciting Carolina Sport Fishing Boat Show, October 26th through 29th at the Charlotte Convention Center. Whether you're fishing for bass or pulling one in on the high seas, the Carolina Sport Fishing Boat Show has something for you. Hop on the latest in offshore boats, check out the newest innovations in marine electronics, and get valuable tips from special fishing seminars. All at the Carolina Sport Fishing Boat Show, October 26th through 29th at the Charlotte Convention Center, Uptown Charlotte.
My crew and I sure know how to make this baby go fast, but your Carolina Ford dealers sure know how to make these #1 selling trucks go even faster, especially now during the Ford Truck Month clearance. First, you add a factory option package that'll save you over $2,700 on this F-150. Then you slap on either special financing or $500 cash back from Ford. Finally, you top it all off with a Super Ford Truck Month clearance discount from your Carolina Ford dealer. Hey, with those kind of savings, they gotta go fast.
Everybody loves a festival, and here in North Carolina,
we've probably got more festivals than any place else on earth. In fact, if you'll call our travel and tourism office at 1-800-VISIT-NC, they'll send you a free book on great festivals and events here in Variety Vacation Land. There's the Azalea Festival, the Woolly Worm Festival, the State Fair, the Dogwood Festival, the National Hollering Contest, the Seafood Festival, music festivals, and dozens more. This month, why not visit a festival and celebrate just being from North Carolina? Call 1-800-VISIT-NC. Tell them Andy sent you. Appreciate it.
Nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina in the morning.
The task of trying to put Charlotte back together is not an easy one. A short ride down Queens Road shows why. City crews from maintenance to utility to special services departments were out in force trying to make roads passable, but the going was slow and tedious.
We've got all sorts of problems. Down power lines, we're going to clear up the debris underneath them. The power lines fall farther and obstructs traffic, and without Duke Power working beside us many times, we have to finagle ways to get the power lines up higher so traffic can get through.
National Guard crews and equipment were flown into Charlotte. Electric crews from as far away as Ohio and Florida converged on the city to begin the chore of restoring power.
It's one of the worst I've ever seen. I've been in it 24 years.
Everyone says a coordinated effort from road crews to electrical workers is needed, but sometimes accomplishing one job makes another worse, such as road crews having to cut power lines to clear the roads of trees. While some are hoping for electricity as soon as possible, for others there's no rush. Their homes were destroyed by falling trees. Just another example of how Hurricane Hugo will remain more than a memory for a long time.
The whole town's going to be a different town. The whole architecture, I think, is going to change because people are going to not want their trees so close in, and the whole area is just going to be radically different from before.
The cleanup, getting things taken care of around the house is one way to try and get your life back to normal, even though it's clear that it may take weeks for some to recover from this. So today there was a big run on the most important items on people's lists.
Y'all need any pens, deposit slips, withdrawal slips?
And number one on the list was getting some money at one of the few banks open in the city.
You didn't have any money up there?
No, we had to go 2 days on bologna and whatever, loaf bread and mustard.
And without money, what was going to happen to you today?
Well, I was going to either turn convict or I was going to do without.
Once many got their hands on some cash, it was back to another long line for gasoline. More stations are reopening in Charlotte, but still no one here can afford to be in much of a rush.
I've been here since about 10 till 10. Started way back there. That's more than 2 hours, right? Yeah, about 2 hours, 20 minutes so far.
It was shopping in the dark at some supermarkets, with people who have no electricity going for the bare essentials.
Just snack stuff, whatever we can carry easily, candles, charcoal, that's always a big problem.
But even though people are learning to cope with their daily needs, coping with the damage of a hurricane, something that Vester Moffat says he's only seen on television, is now going to take some time for him.
There you could think, well, those people are in bad shape and got a long ways to go. But here, it's back home. I got a long ways to go.
Throughout hurricane-ravaged Charleston, people struggle to find some of life's basic needs. Limited supplies of clean water arrived in several locations.
It's very difficult to find clean drinking water. Very difficult.
Long lines for water, and even longer lines for gasoline. Patience is needed for survival.
Right here a couple of hours, I finally got up here. And look like I'm gonna be out here soon. I'm gonna get enough, I'm gonna go home and use it for emergency only.
In the market, a restaurant owner digs out. In another part of town, this eating establishment rocked by Hugo fired up its grill with the help of generators and out-of-town employees.
Lined up out the door ever since we got here this morning, 6 o'clock. We're just serving a limited menu, but at least the food's hot.
National Guardsmen remain on duty to keep the peace. For several days, the damage has been easy to spot in the upscale historic district. But blocks away in this low-income housing project, residents continue to dry out. Many units were flooded, and that sent some residents rummaging through donated clothes.
Low-income neighborhood, any neighborhood, you know, everybody I see need help.
Absolutely devastated at this point.
Just the approach to Folly Beach is bad enough, this devastated marina. A boat that took on too much water. Another that rose above it all, now high and dry. But now, in the aftermath, Folly Beach's first casualty. A man falling off a ladder trying to repair his home, an injured back. There are other health problems. Mayor Bob Linville finally found a doctor for advice.
Tetanus shots can only be given how?
Kind of a service of Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
But it'll also be a good time for neighbors to see where other neighbors are, things like that. And of course, I'm sure that we can give right up-to-date announcements as far as the community as a whole is concerned.
Old-timers say it was the worst they can remember. Homes that appear to have superficial damage are often in much worse shape. 10 guardsmen have been brought in to keep order. How do you describe the devastation? Well, yes, there's no power and will be none for at least 2 weeks. But no matter what it may look like, there's no water here as well. Also gone, the Atlantic House, long a landmark in these parts.
To see that the Atlantic House was just totally gone. I mean, it wasn't broken down, it was just gone, and it was heart-rendering because all these many years, the Atlantic House has seemed to be kind of a silent sentinel for Folly Beach.
Bring your food on. Hey, right here, Paul. You got what? Here's a receipt.
It's been a madhouse.
Hey, 2 things. Just grab 2 things. Thank you. Hey, thank you.
$1 a bag, 2 bags per person, and no limit on age or height. The word spread quickly that the Hair and Ice Company had bags to sell, but a few angry customers didn't feel like they had much time to spare.
When people attempt to try to jump in front of other people, yeah, we've had a few, confrontations, a few arguments, but we're trying to tell everybody to be patient with us.
Patience is requested and also demanded. The National Guard is enforcing good behavior when local ice supplies run short.
For crowd control, just to make sure that everybody stays calm, everybody does what they're supposed to be doing.
I was in this area right in here.
A visit to the Goldens family home can help put the ice shortages in perspective.
Terrifying noise. Terrible.
This was Claude and Beverly Golden's second month here in their first home. A tree that Hugo delivered to their kitchen has now brought insurance adjusters to their door.
I'm all right during the day, but when I lay down at night, I keep hearing that tree coming through the house. It's a terrible feeling. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Insurance agents are able to put cash in your hands much faster than they can get a new roof on your home. They're working with contractors who have waiting lists, too.
We'll do what we can to make it as quick as possible, but if someone needs a new roof, it's going to take maybe a few months.
No one panicked. I was more concerned about getting out of the weather, I think. Once we knew we couldn't make it to the hospital and got back here, I felt like everything would be okay.
Everything did work out okay. Jane, her husband Dale, and their 2 other children brought Julie Catherine Dixon into the world, despite the fury of Hugo.
Having the baby, all that, the kids were great. Everybody was composed, and it came along fine.
It was a family affair. Fortunately, the Dixons have a gas stove, so they boiled water, got out flashlights, and headed to a makeshift delivery room.
I had no idea what was going to happen, really. But I thought it was kind of neat. I had to boil the water and hold flashlights and stuff.
Was it easy?
Yeah, but it was exciting.
Everyone else is frantic trying to get debris out of the yard, and we're just happy we had a healthy daughter, and it was a pleasant ordeal for us.
And just in case you're wondering, did the Dixons ever consider naming their daughter Hugo?
We heard that, Hugina and a few things, but anyway, that was a name we had chosen earlier, so we just decided to stick with it.
Charleston's second night after Hugo. Home for some may be on a boat, but in the heart of old Charleston, some are returning to home still without electricity and drinkable water. This is the extended family of Charles Gear and some friends.
I think we'll just go to bed earlier and get up with the sun and scrape the mud off.
Is it like camping out for you?
Camping out would be better than staying around here and getting all muddy.
What's it like inside of one of these fine old homes? Mother-in-law Frances Boyd gave us a tour.
You see, the water came up over all this, and all this floated off. The child had gotten the portraits off the wall and taken them upstairs, and that was good. It was good.
Dinner this night is up the street with some neighbors. The last frozen steaks on a grill.
This is it.
What do you do tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, I guess we'll eat canned asparagus or something like that.
And the night after that?
Well, we'll have some tuna fish and some deviled ham.
Still, a dusk to dawn curfew makes it seem like a military occupation. And while the task ahead is daunting, the charm of Charleston somehow makes it seem a little more endurable.
Last week, WBTV News was on your side. A case before the Supreme Court could change the way North Carolina juries decide who gets the death penalty. Visitors from Kentucky gave high marks to Charlotte's homeless shelter. Charlotte taxpayers became part owners of the uptown retail center City Fair. Locations for Halloween celebrations as the city encourages children not to go trick-or-treating. And tips on protecting your PC from a computer virus. Join us nightly for WBTV News.
Last week on Top of the Day, we heard the amazing account of two men's struggle for survival in the Alaskan wilderness. We covered the controversy concerning the City Fair takeover. And for Better or for Worse creator, Lynn Johnston illustrated her success as an award-winning cartoonist. Monday, he's the man who turned ebony into gold. Meet founder and publisher John Johnson and find out about his latest venture. Plus, we'll have the latest Crime Stoppers case reports. All this and more, Monday at 11:30.
We went into the bathroom. There was blood all over the bathroom.
They're the most shocking, violent, and despicable crimes you can imagine.
He cut her up with a chainsaw, and then he put her in little packages, and he put the packages through the wood chipper and into the river.
The vet called the police back and said, this isn't dog meat, this is human.
He told one of the neighbors that he couldn't kill a rabbit, but he could kill him.
Beyond murder, beyond madness, monstrous crimes. Next, Geraldo.
Join us for Geraldo, Monday afternoon at 4 on WBTV.
Every school day in North Carolina, nearly 3 busloads of students, that's more than 135 kids, never make it to school. They drop out because they don't believe a diploma matters to their future, and they're too young to know how rough things can get down the road. With around 25,000 dropouts a year, it's clear we can't go on this way. Please, call your Board of Education and volunteer to help keep a kid in school. Together, we can turn this problem around.
Sarah, you were at the coast when Hugo hit. What sticks in your mind about that?
Bob, we've talked so much about the power of this storm, but what really stays with me is remembering the feeling of calm before the storm hit. I've never understood how people could have hurricane parties, why they would stay at the beach in the path of a hurricane when sensible people had long since evacuated. But after experiencing those calm hours before the storm, I can see how people are lulled into thinking that they're invulnerable. What that night taught me was how fragile, even how puny we humans are in the face of nature at its most violent. Nature has a way of humbling us, reminding us that no matter how strong we think we are, no matter how well we think we know this world, that there are forces which are beyond our control.
And where were you on the morning of Friday, September the 22nd, 1989? That's a question that we will be asking and answering for years to come, because this has become a benchmark in our history, a point against which all time, past and future, is measured. No one, young or old, was unaffected. No one totally escaped this. And when that happens, it becomes part of our personal history, even our mythology. But the story's not entirely written, of course. The pictures that we have shown you tonight are only the beginning. It will be years before we can entirely fathom how Hugo changed our lives and our communities. We will never again think quite the same about our trees, about electricity, about the weather. But perhaps the biggest single impact is on how we regard each other, because nothing quite makes a neighbor out of a stranger as quickly as a tragedy does. The pictures you have seen tonight, of course, are staggering. They are etched forever on our memory. But look at it this way. This is before and not after. Good night for WBTV News.
Good night.
This WBTV News special has been brought to you by your local Carolina Ford dealer.